I look at each of you, and I see the marks of this long and terrible war. If we die tonight, mankind dies with us. The machine sent a Terminator back to the time before the war to kill my mother, Sarah Connor.
Sir, let me save her. What you're doing right now, this is the end of the war. The time you're going back to, she'll be scared and weak. Take care of her for me, Kyle.
Come with me if you want to live. Now, soldier!
Okay, so this is the 5th Terminator film.
I think I've seen that movie.
You could call it Terminator 5. If you remember, the first Terminator, the original, the OG, as the kids call it.
Vaguely, because they're all mashed up in my head.
Michael Biehn plays Kyle Reese. He goes back in time because he has to save Sarah Connor. And if you remember, Sarah Connor is a waitress. She has no combat training. She's just a woman living in 1980s LA. This man shows up and says, you're going to father the leader of the rebellion who's going to save humanity from extermination from machines. They've sent a machine back in time to kill you. I have to protect you. So in this film, it's the same thing. Kyle Reese goes back in time to save Sarah Connor, only now Sarah Connor is not a waitress. She's not a woman just living in 1980s LA. She is a woman who is acutely aware of the fact that she is going to father the son of the rebellion, and she is one of the most deadly people on planet Earth, and she actually has a Terminator unit who she calls Pops, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is protecting her since she was a little girl. So somewhere along the line...
Is this a reboot? A reboot or a sequel?
No, it's not a reboot. It's a sequel. The premise is that the timeline at some point in the Terminator universe has been altered.
My head is going to explode. That's the problem with these going back in time, is they can change it to any way they want. But if you go back and follow an order, it doesn't make sense.
So the premise now is Sarah Connor, Pops, and Kyle Reese have to figure out what changed in the timeline and how can they stop Judgment Day, i.e. the taking over of the world by the machines and the extermination of humanity from ever happening.
All right, why anybody would spend $2 to see this movie is beyond me. Evan, have you seen this?
Yes.
Oh! Did you spend $2 to see this?
I spent more. I spent $7.50.
Well, all right. Well, tell me how your $7.50 was spent.
It was spent poorly, Kevin. It was an absolute abomination on about every level you could imagine.
I could have guessed.
Outside of Terminator 3, which is by far the worst in the franchise, not even close, this film is terrible. First off, there are more plot holes in this than there are on an Illinois toll road.
Ooh, really? Now, come on.
Kevin, I'm not kidding. I went and I saw it with a friend of mine. We're sitting in the theater, and literally, and when I say literally, I mean literally, every 5 minutes, one of us was leaning over to the other one and saying, wait a minute, didn't such and such just buzz up? Isn't that a plot hole? And finally, I leaned over at one point. He goes, just stop. He goes, there's too many plot. He goes, just roll with it. I tried and I couldn't.
It's not a plot hole when you can travel back in time.
But there are even plot holes within the plot holes they're trying to solve. Like by creating a film in which the timeline's been changed. Okay, that's an interesting premise. Everything we know in the Terminator universe has now changed. So the whole saga has rebooted itself. Very interesting. But by creating that whole reboot, they have created a whole new set of plot holes that were not answered by the creation of this new timeline.
Has Arnie been in every one of the movies?
He was not in Terminator Salvation.
Okay. But he is in this one, a fairly prominent role?
He's pretty much the lead.
Okay.
I mean, let's just be honest. It's a Terminator film.
Does he hold up?
Honestly, he's the only good acting performance in the movie.
Wow.
Because there's this interesting thing of he's a Terminator, he's a machine, but he's been with this girl, Sarah Connor, since she was 7 years old. Now she's almost 30. And when she's in situations and when she could get hurt, there's actually moments when you think, is he experiencing actual emotions? Now, they don't go as far as they did in some other movies. Like if you remember in the Steven Spielberg film AI, I'm giving away the end of that film, the robot cries. Well, he's not supposed to be able to cry. It's a miracle is how it's led to belief. But in this film, they actually make it seem as if there's an emotional connection between the Terminator and the individual he's been sent back in time to protect, which was interesting. The problem was the characters he was sent back in time to protect aren't all that interesting. They're really boring characters, and it's really boring performances. They're not bad. They're just boring.
Is Arnold believable, or does he look like he's a 65-year-old, 30 years past his prime action star?
Well, he looks older, but they do that away with one line of dialogue. I'll do it right here for you. But wait a minute. He looks like he's 65 years old. Well, he has actual human tissue on his exoskeleton. So wait, what does that mean? Well, the skin ages. My circuitry is still in fine working order. I'm old, not obsolete. That's the line of dialogue that does away to make it to explain why he looks as old as he does.
All right.
Although there's a scene that happens at the end of the movie that completely contradicts all of that, but they apparently don't care.
I'm going to guess you're going to say, don't even mess around with this on DVD.
Don't even bother.
Okay.
Don't. If you enjoy the Terminator franchise, stick it with the Terminator and T2. Those were two perfect films in and of themselves. Any attempt to add on to this franchise since has been almost a near disaster. Terminator Salvation, which was the film that only took place in the future.
Never saw it.
It was an interesting idea. It wasn't very well executed. The only good thing we really got out of that film was Christian Bale screaming at someone on set. That leaked recording that came out when he was screaming and losing his mind, and everyone was, "Whoa, wow, Christian Bale's kind of intense." Like you needed to hear that audio to know that.
Right.
Just watch one of his performances or watch an interview that he does on TV. He's a pretty intense dude in real life, but everything about this film was just, I can't even say disappointing because I didn't go in with particularly high hopes. I just wanted to be entertained. There's so much wrong with it that I couldn't even be entertained by the action scenes because it was just so obvious what was going to happen, Kevin, every step of the way. And I never thought I'd say this. The one thing that even Terminator Salvation had, it wasn't boring. It wasn't boring.
And this one's boring?
This is boring, Kevin.
All right.
I have to say this. The person who plays Kyle Reese, Jai Courtney, he's from Sydney, Australia. I'm not picking on the guy. But this guy has been in Terminator. He's been an Insurgent. He was in Divergent. He was in Jack Reacher. He was in A Good Day to Die Hard. And now he's going to be in Suicide Squad, which is one of the new DC comic book movies coming out because they're creating their own universe. He is one of the most boring actors I've ever seen. Why is Hollywood shoving him down our throats?
He works cheap.
He must. His agent just must be the hardest working agent in show business. If I was an actor, I would hire Jai Courtney's agent to be my agent. And this is not to be mean. He's not a bad actor. He's just boring. There's nothing to him. Every performance is the same. And yet he continues to show up in major franchise after major franchise. And I don't get it.